The mindset of the industry is changing dramatically, and there are certain myths that are being busted. And I don't mean like there are certain processes and ways of approaching business that are changing. Now, when I say changing, I don't mean that the old ones are becoming obsolete. Not at all. I do think that certain aspects of property investing are still essential and need to be there. But it's great, and this is where the beauty comes, is like, you know, combining, let's say, you as an individual who's got 25 experience of picking the right asset, and then combining aspects of data to actually make a more appropriate decision. You know what I mean? It's essentially, you know, in let's say, in my PhD or in academic circles, you'll call that triangulation. And what that essentially means is like trying to approach a problem from many different angles in order to make sure that you're not missing anything, you know? And that's what's
what we love about HSA. We love that detail. That's not what we see from, it's built by property investors for property investors and buyers agents, right? And anyone looking to make the right decision and minimize any potential risk, because that comes back to you know what you were saying earlier, how you actually are not just constructing the narrative, but you know minimizing all and any points of you know risk.
Yeah, so coming back to, for example, that discussion about, you know, those individuals who are pushing certain areas at a particular time. And as we all know in the industry currently, you know, there are ethical and unethical actors.
That's the world of polarity, right?
Exactly. For some reason, you know, actually it's in every industry, but for some reason in property it really stands out in a sense because there's a lot about property investing that's also related to marketing, independent of marketing, you know. And sometimes marketing is equated with competence, which is not the case. So coming back to, you know, what those areas they were promoting, and if you could actually just, you know, assess those areas they were promoting on the basis of particular property investment indicators or metrics, you would understand whether that's actually suitable for you or not, or whether they're telling the truth or not, even if you want to go and push it to that extent, you know, trying to find out whether they're lying or not. And then coming back to what you're saying, it's exactly right. Like it's a tool that you use to make sense and to see, you know, whether something is right for you or not. Now, the complexity increases in data and in everything else is when you're trying to find out what is the best possible thing or a scenario for your particular situation. And that can get very complex. But I mean, you can start and build up on that complexity as you go along. You don't have to deep dive into it right away. And there are certain 5 or 6 things that you can look at to really, I guess, see truth from false. If you wanna, you know.
But I think a lot of people don't ask certain buyers agents or certain spruikers about, you know, their strengths, weaknesses, why they're in a certain area, and so on. Because a lot of the bigger guys pump volume, and when they do volume and they've got contacts in a particular area, and a lot of people don't know this. When they've got volume, when they pump volume and they've got contacts in a certain area, they'll stay there, particularly because there'll be an agent that'll give them 10 deals a month. And they'll just take 10 deals at 15K and put 10 clients into that area. And that's $150,000. And they'll pump that area after, like, for example, when I would have left, let's say I would have left an area in January this year. They'd continue pumping it for the next 8 months. Why? Because they're making $150K a month at 10 deals times whatever. You know, it's about their personal interest. And I think a lot of people don't see that side of the industry.
Yeah, so there's a lot of market making, if you want to call it that way. You know what I mean? The issue is that, you know, what is not really understood properly is that you can't market make continuously and perpetually. No. Because sooner or later, you're going to create a friction point for the residents that live within that suburb. I mean, in order for you to market make, you need to have not only those, let's say, those buyers agents pumping the area, you also need to have the residents also buying within that area. So you can have compounded growth or growth that exceeds the 10 or 15% average, well, not averages, but I mean, you know, the hotspot average, if you want to call them. So somebody can be market making an area, but they represent a certain cohort of buyers. They don't represent the entire cohort of buyers.
No.
So if they continually try to market make and pump a particular suburb, they'll come to a friction point where the nosedive is going to be much more pronounced than would have been if.
And you don't want to be caught at that.
No, absolutely.
At that point, right?
Absolutely. Because, you know, internal residents will start feeling the pain. And I always say this, you reduce it down to purchasing, you know, groceries. You know what I mean? Remember, I mean, I came to Australia in the year 2000. I remember at the time we could purchase, I always say this. And this is what data is. You always need to reduce it down to representations of behavior. and try to refer back to yourself. You're a test case. You're an individual. You know what I mean? And then think about domains of life where affordability has really impacted the way you behave. You know, as I said before, you know, like you go to Coles and you fill 2 trolleys up with $50 in 2000s. You know, now you need $300 to fill one. And that has dramatically shifted how we perceive purchasing and how we perceive value. And imagine on a scale of property where you're spending $500, $600 or $1 million in a suburb where residents are completely feeling priced out of the market. How does that impact our lifestyle? So, for example, their mortgages increase, they can't buy property, that part of the demand completely drops or fades away or evaporates. And it just changes market dynamics of an area. You know what I mean? And then coming back, what you said at the onset is like, you know, a lot of people don't ask the buyer's agents, or let's say don't ask the individuals who are investing on their behalf about, you know, like an area or why, what, and how. Why, what, and how.